Welcome to the Paradise Paradox once again. My name's Kurt Robinson.
My name's Aaron Battle.
So today we're talking about something which is at the core of many cultures. We're talking about the big guy. We're talking about God. Different cultures' perceptions of God, different definitions of God, different views of spirituality, ancient spirituality and modern spirituality, and a lot of fun stuff like that.
Is there a God? Are you God? Who is that guy? Is he a guy? I don't know. But we covered our personal points of view on religion, all aspects of worshipping something, someone. Be sure to check it out.
Cool.
Press like, subscribe on iTunes, subscribe on YouTube, send us a tweet, Battle AZ, and Trouble Bubble.
I think Commander Keen was probably the first game that ever had God mode on it.
Well, even Sonic turned yellow. Like, that was cool. And Mario Brothers, they super juiced.
Super juice. Did they drink mushroom juice? Is that what happened?
No, well, you played Mario. You get the mushroom and you get big.
Yeah.
And then you get the different type of mushroom and you can... No, was it a mushroom or like a feather? You get the feather and...
Oh, yeah, a feather. Yeah, that's another one. Yeah. Well, the mushroom, I can understand that has psychedelic properties. Then the fire flower. Okay, so I think there are... For example, the acacia is a source of DMT.
I've recently heard that as well.
Yeah,
AKA the burning
acacia
bush.
is like the story of the burning bush. So what if this bush was actually letting off some chemical which was inhaled by Moses, and then he started having visions? Acacia is the wattle. The wattle is an acacia. The wattle is the national flower of Australia. Very common. And so that's a question about Aboriginal culture as well, because it seems like not many people talk about DMT or those types of drugs in Australia compared to shamans in the Amazon. But what if that's a...
Well, I mean, Aboriginal people did they knew it was important to burn the bush.
Really?
Yeah, of course, for clearing. It's important to revive the soils. It was all you burn all the bush. It all turns to carbon. It goes back into the ground. It releases nitrates or
right?
Is it? I don't know. The carbon has an effect.
Sulfates.
Yeah, it has an effect with the ground, and everything turns green again.
Yeah. Okay.
The cycle of life.
Okay. So welcome to the Paradise Paradox. I'm Kurt Robinson.
My name's Aaron Battle.
Remember to press like and press subscribe. Enjoy our videos. So today we're talking about
God. We're going for the big guy.
Yeah, Elohim, Yahweh. The guy in the sky, the shining, magical, flying spaghetti monster.
That's new.
You don't know about Pastafarianism?
I haven't been to that church yet.
Okay. Well, that's like a mock religion that people started on the internet. The flying spaghetti monster, or Pastafarianism. It's meant to mock the idea of religion, if you can claim that there's this magical man in the sky who has all these abilities, why can't I just worship a giant beast that's made out of pasta? What's the difference?
And that stuck?
Oh, as a joke. I mean, you can look up news stories where people have worn pasta strainers, spaghetti strainers, as hats.
I've seen it.
Yeah, as a show of their religiosity when they're getting a driver's license photo taken, and some of them they actually let through. But there was a case in Australia where the guy got pulled over and he had the strainer on his head, and I think they nearly sent him to the mental institution.
What? That doesn't seem right. I mean, the person that took the photo must have been on work experience to let them through in the first place.
The guy must have convinced them. I'm sure he said, this is my religion, these are my beliefs.
Oh no! Well, in Australia, you don't touch those topics. Like, if someone said that to me, I'd be like, yeah, okay, cool. It's like,
yeah. Well, if I worked at the RTA, I wouldn't care if someone wears a strainer on the head. But
yeah, you're right.
Sometimes the rules are rules, and that's how a lot of bureaucrats think.
Well, it's now we're moving into territory of spaghetti strainer or burqa.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the kind of comparison that it's intended to display.
It sounds silly, but that's not serious matters.
Yeah, there are technical reasons. This is a difficult one because I know there are reasons why the flying spaghetti monster fails as an analogy to religion, and it's because of a certain philosopher, Saint Thomas Aquinas. Back in the 13th or 14th century, he raised a lot of philosophical ideas about the nature of God, and there are things stating that it cannot be material, it cannot be physical, because that's going to make it limitable.
Limiting.
Yeah. If it's physical or material, that means it has a limit, and therefore it cannot be God. I'm simplifying the argument because it was. I still don't understand the entire thing, but that's the basics.
It's a good way of putting it because God's supposed to be, well, God is. There's no limit. It's like to limit God is completely in contra to the idea in the first place.
Yes, completely contrary to the idea of God, and that's kind of what Aquinas set out to prove. And so the instant you say flying or spaghetti, you've actually put a limit on God, and so sorry, the flying spaghetti monster isn't God according to Aquinas' definition. So it doesn't actually knock down the idea of God that most people have.
But it is interesting that God's always portrayed as well, in most cases, as a wise old man.
Yeah.
I mean, many movies, many paintings.
Yeah, in the Sistine Chapel, you have the picture of God sitting on a bed of angels and is reaching out to touch Adam's finger.
And in more recent pop culture, Morgan Freeman.
Yes. Yeah. That's another thing. That's what they call the magical Negro. That's a stereotype in Hollywood movies.
Do you have any idea why that came about?
Why the magical Negro appears in movies?
Yeah, that idea.
That's a complex subject. I think it's something to do with white guilt, and it's something to do with how Hollywood has a very leftist bent. So they're always trying to be politically correct. And so in one way that they're trying to be politically correct, which actually comes off as rather condescending, is to include these black people who actually have magical powers. Like, for example, in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, they meet a magical Negro who's an old man and blind, but he can see through time. Or Spike Lee calls certain instances a super duper magical Negro. So, for example, in The Legend of Bagger Vance, that would be an example where Will Smith plays a sort of angel. So, the thing about these characters is they're always, in some way, they're subservient to white people, and so it's really twisted. It's really twisted. So, anyway.
How do you think they feel individually about playing the role? I mean, they would have to know at some level. But I mean, it's just a job.
Yeah, well, I know Morgan Freeman has came out in interviews and he said he doesn't believe in God. And people assume he does, I guess, because he's played God in a couple of movies.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would have assumed he would.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, before we even decided we want to talk about this topic, it was like, you sure you want to talk about God? It's like the fact that I know that I'm thinking about who's going to be watching the episode before I'm talking about the episode means it's going to be a good episode.
Yeah.
So sorry, Ma. I'm sure it's cool.
I'm not sorry. I'll talk about it all day if it's interesting.
It's good, but I mean, you know, I'm aware of other people being upset about what could fly out of this mouth.
Yeah.
But we're going to start with, do we believe in God? This is like a fundamental point. Before what is God? How is God perceived? Or, you know, what are we going to call it? Spaghetti or black man? I believe in God.
The Lord, our venerable Reverend Morgan Freeman. Well, I would say I do believe in God, but this is an interesting question because people have asked me this before, and I asked, well, hang on, you got to define your terms. What do you mean when you say God? And I remember I was on a date with a young lady, and she said that, and that was my response. And she said, well, God is like an engineer, an architect of the universe who created everything. And I said, okay, no, I don't believe that. And her response was, oh, that's okay. You don't. Not everybody believes in God. And I said, I didn't say I didn't believe in God. What I said was I didn't believe in your God. And that's a big difference. Yeah. So do you believe in God?
I believe in God, but I'm still processing that definition to see where that fits in my idea of God or not. As like an almighty, as a being that created, like as an architect, because we're limiting his job role. Because I would have thought God is that at some level, plus the universe, plus everything in the universe, plus everything outside the universe, and infinite other universes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, does that mean I'll say yes?
It sounds good to me. Yeah.
Was that the first date, by the way?
Yeah.
Because that sounds a bit heavy.
Yeah, well, I didn't bring up the subject.
Could have been a cool chick.
She was all right.
So I guess the next question is, without saying your definition,
okay,
are you religious?
No, I'm not religious.
Okay. I think I am religious.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about it.
But, okay, because this is a thing as well. Because if you say you're religious, it does imply that you follow one religion specifically.
Yeah.
But there's a saying about truth. Follow those who seek the truth, and run from those who claim to have found it. And that's it always seems to be a pretty good smell test for determining who to hang out with.
Well, okay, if I have to say that I'm religious because I belong to one religion, then I think I fail. Because
But you do think you're religious. You would consider yourself religious.
I consider myself, if someone asked me, are you open? Are you religious? I would consider myself religious. But I think I follow more than one religion.
Right.
So would that put me out of the religious category?
I don't know. Well, the Bible says you can't be a servant of two masters.
Okay, all right, but yeah, okay. All right.
So I don't know.
Let's keep diving.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah, well, I consider myself, like when people ask me if I'm religious, I say, I know it's a horrible cliche, but I say, well, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. Another word which I don't use because it's a little technical, but I describe myself as a pantheist, meaning I believe that God is in everything. Everything is God.
Yeah, I can say I agree to that. Man, there's so much. There's so many definitions.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got to be really. Well, I mean, we'd have to be careful because I say I believe in everything. I think, and even more so, I believe in what I don't believe as well. Does that make sense?
I don't know. How do you do that?
Let me explain. If I meet someone that's come up to me with a completely new religion, and in that, and they say, you know, I believe in one almighty power. I believe that everything is part of that. I believe, and so on. You know, like what could fit into most religions, but then gives it a funny name, and you know, draws his God in an image that I'm not familiar with. I believe that person believes in that, but I'm not aware of it. So how can I believe in it just yet? But I believe that they believe it.
Right.
Tell me more about it, and then I can nod and shake my head and agree where it overlaps with what I already know. Like
Sure.
this would have happened a lot between when people started traveling. There would have been a lot of different religions that shared a lot of ideologies, but you know, one guy was blue and the other guy was old. but they're still the one almighty power.
Yeah,
that designed everything.
For a long time, it was forbidden to portray any angels or God Himself or itself in any work by Christians. I mean, now of course the more famous example is with Islam, when people draw pictures of the Prophet Muhammad. A lot of people get a little uneasy about that. But in the Bible, it specifically says, in the Ten Commandments, it says, like, don't make graven idols. And it goes on to say, don't make any images of anything in heaven or earth. And so that was the law, which I think that's a little too strict. I don't really abide by that one.
Well, I understand why I understand why that law was there. Like I get that these worlds of religious, spiritual nature are all they're not physical, they're not material. So to draw something that isn't material in a form that can be perceived material is wrong.
Yes.
Which is why it's just blanket rule: don't idol anything material.
Yeah, but it wasn't just don't create an idol. It was also saying don't create an image. Or that was my interpretation of it, because perhaps something's lost in translation there.
Well, even playing with that, not to create an image, I understand why that is, because to create an image is to create an image in someone else's mind, and that's like a perception of a physical thing. Otherwise, you can't draw something not physical or not material.
But I'm talking about even if I drew a tree. Well, according to the strictest interpretation of this law, that would be unlawful.
Okay. So,
or if I draw you.
But why would you want to do that in the first place?
For self-expression, and you know, send somebody a picture of you or put it up on your wall or something. There's many reasons.
To say, okay, I've drawn a picture of my God. Here it is.
No, I'm not talking about God. I'm talking about drawing a picture of you.
What, that was not allowed?
According to the strictest interpretation of this law, we can put up the. Do you want to bring up the exact wording there, like from the King James version of the Ten Commandments, and you can look it up. But so one thing about this.
Well, let's explore the idea, because
Okay.
I was thinking of just God, but just the idea of creating images of each other. I mean, that just seems outdated.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people talk about religions being old hat.
Yeah.
But but we're living in a different world now. It's like, I think those were times when it wasn't easy to upload pictures and change profile pictures and stuff, because all these religions should have their own Facebook by now, shouldn't they? Even
I'm sure they do. I mean, you can go on to God on Facebook.
I haven't tried.
Talk to God.
I consider him a friend.
You can like his page.
Okay, so what am I going to look up here to refer to in a little bit?
Look up King James Version, Ten Commandments, and. Yes, so this is a thing I always find very hypocritical in Latin American culture, because there are a lot of Catholics, so many Catholics, a countless number of Catholics, but they all go to churches which have figures of Jesus Christ, figures of saints on the walls, and even the Virgin Mary, which I find so bizarre, because the Virgin Mary is hardly mentioned at all in the Bible. There's even one scene where one of the apostles comes to Jesus and says, "Oh, Jesus, your family are here." And Jesus is like, "Who are you talking about?" He says, "Well, your mother and your brothers and your sisters." And Jesus says, "This is my family. Like the people who are closest to me spiritually, they are my family. Like my church is my family." So
which could be family home.
How do you mean?
Well, I mean, like, these are people that are real to him.
Yeah.
Like
The people who are closest to him, his followers. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got the list up here, and there's a comparison.
Okay,
as
here we
well.
go. "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth." Now, you see how that's pretty limiting. No image of anything on earth, in the sky, in heaven, no image of anything anywhere, basically.
Okay, but I'm wondering why.
Yeah, because it ties into that thing about the idols.
It is, but it's for our own good. Like, this is for our own good, right?
I don't know.
So-
Well, that's the thing I always wonder about too. How religions can be used as tools by the powerful to manipulate people. So, like we've talked before about the clause about rendering unto Caesar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people interpret that as pay your damn taxes and shut up, and that's more or less how they say it.
But I mean, I've come across topics where they mention that maybe these concepts were added to the Bible later.
Yeah, well, with that one, I put a video on YouTube about that, and it was based on an essay on a website called God is an Anarchist. Because in the story, of course, Jesus says, "Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and render unto God that which is God's." Everything belongs to God. So what belongs to Caesar?
Nothing.
I don't think anything belongs to Caesar. So I would never use that as a reason to justify taxes. I think that was completely removed from what Jesus was trying to say.
I believe that too, 100%.
Yeah.
So does that mean that okay? So let's say Caesar doesn't own anything. I'm going to extend that to say that we don't own anything. Like everything's on borrowed time.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, you could say that.
Well then, let's just push a little further. Do you believe that Jesus is God?
No, I don't. I mean, in what sense? Like in the sense that we are all God? Yeah, I believe that.
Cool. So do I. This is interesting. So does that mean I'm as much God as Jesus was?
I would say yes.
Because I like to believe that.
Yeah.
Okay, where'd I go with that?
I don't know. That's a pretty offensive idea right there.
Yeah. I mean, I just know that people are going to understanding that. I mean, that to me seems like really simple logic by most scriptures. But that can be quite offensive to people. To say, I'm as much God as Jesus would upset a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why.
Well, my friend Luke told me this story. My friend Luke he used to be an atheist, and now he's a bit more agnostic. He studied philosophy and theology, I suppose. That he told me a story where a young lady, I believe she was Catholic, and she had a sort of vision or an intense experience, a peak experience where she felt her body was encapsulated by the Holy Spirit, something like this, some very intense experience, a spiritual experience. And she fell to her knees and she started saying, "I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy." And to me, that seems so strange to have a spiritual experience, which by your own beliefs is actually given to you by God, but then you fall down and you say, I am not worthy, like refusing to accept your own divinity.
Is that a pre-programming?
Well, they say this phrase in Catholic churches, I am not worthy, I am not worthy. They say that over and over and over again, and that's one like big criticism that I have of the Catholic Church, among many others.
I think too many people repeat words without thinking about what they're actually meant, like what meaning's held with that. We mentioned a few different words that we notice here in the Spanish language that people say, without. But what does that really mean? Like I don't know. What's an example you had?
Ojalá.
What does that mean? I mean, you asked me what does that mean?
Yeah. And you know what it means in everyday speech. It means hopefully, or I hope, or if only. But the literal meaning, it's actually an Arabic word, or it's descended from an Arabic word. The ojalá, Allah, is actually Allah. So it means according to Allah's will, or God willing.
But that notion's quite common here in Mexico. I'm not sure at other Spanish-speaking countries. I'm assuming so.
Yeah.
It is, if God allows, everything will turn out just well. This is actually what started the whole conversation on God to start with.
Yeah.
It was like, if God wants this to turn out right, it will turn out okay. Just trust in God. And it's like, well, I got to turn up first, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, they have another saying. I don't know if you heard this one, but it's a quien madruga, Dios le ayuda.
I have heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, you know that one.
Yeah.
So it's like the early bird catches the worms. He who wakes up early, or he who rises with the sun, God will help that person.
It's like work hard.
Yeah, God helps those who help themselves. That's the other meaning behind it. Yeah, so you can't. I hear this story sometimes. Like there's a young lady in church, and she sees a handsome lad who's also going to church every week, but she never speaks to him, and she justifies it to herself by saying, "Oh, well, if we're meant to meet, then God will allow us to meet." But no, that's really a bizarre notion. Like, you think God is just going to throw everything into your lap? That's a kind of delusion.
Yeah, I agree with. I agree with both sides because God's already done the work. You're both there in the same church.
Right. That's
you know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. God's done his piece, his part. You got to do the rest now. Like,
I brought you 99%. Just that last 1%. That's all you need to do.
And I think that's the delusion.
Yeah.
Like, people don't realize where they need to take over. It's like, religion's like a school to understand that there's another realm of spirituality.
Yeah.
But you got to turn up to yoga.
Yeah.
you got to meditate.
Yeah.
You can't just expect to gain enlightenment by turning up to church every weekend and repeating that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
That's not going to do it. Or what are you going for? Are you going there to hang out with friends and drink coffee? Because I can do that somewhere else. I think people get confused with the concept of religion and spirituality, and then they're so quick and easy to point fingers at other people and say, well, you really should invite God into your life. Have you heard that phrase?
No one said that.
Okay, no, it's
not recently anyway.
Well, this last week I was invited to a Christian church. Yeah. So for me, it's like it's on topic, and it's in most of the time the people in general that invite you to churches kind of drop hints and ideas and talk to you about God's will, and it's actually, it was interesting. The guy I was speaking to actually said he was explaining to me that his work, he does God's work, God's will, by talking and inviting people to the church.
Okay.
And I get his point of view, but more so he says that I'm only talking to you because God, God invited me into your life to talk to you right now.
That's a very interesting worldview, but then I don't know. I'm thinking about this in a kind of sick way because I could say the same thing if I was murdering people. I could be like, I'm only doing this because God commanded me.
Yeah, you can't use it like that.
Yeah. Why can I do one and not the other?
This is a good point. It's like But
on the other hand, I can see how that's empowering for him. Like whenever he does something, he does it with purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I talk to. I mean, he could say I talk to many people about God, and God's allowing me into their life. I agree with you in the notion that everything is God and God's this matrix hologram, and we're all playing a game. All individual fractals of God. God in His own image as one individual person, part of a bigger pattern. So it's like, cool, I'm listening to what you're saying and I agree with you, but if you want me to hang out at your social club and drink coffee and share cookies, well, I don't have to do that on Sunday. You could just invite me over tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's true. That's the difference that I think, what's people, they give away the purpose and they need to reclaim that and say, what am I actually trying to achieve here in my time on earth? That's pretty more the spirituality side of the religion. People don't think.
I like what you said there about fractals. I think we touched a little bit last time about the holographic universe. And a hologram, when you take a hologram, every single piece, you can actually recreate the whole. So if you take the tiniest piece of a hologram, then it implies everything. So if the universe is like that, then that's another way that God expresses itself.
Watch us again at the Paradise Paradox. Watch us on YouTube, like us on Facebook. Watch us on YouTube, like us on Facebook. Tweet us on Twitter, and listen to us on iTunes or Pocket Casts.
So have you come across any religions that you find interesting?
Yeah. One which still has a kind of special personal significance to me is Taoism. This is kind of a weird story. I used to have a kind of fascination with the word master. Like somebody who's a master of himself, someone who can control his environment, make the world the way he wants it to be. I had this special meaning in my mind.
Did you want a master?
I wanted to be
the master.
Or a master, yeah, at least. And this was back in the days when people actually used encyclopedias, like physical ones. So I went to the Encyclopedia Britannica and opened it up and went to M and looked up master. And the first thing that came up was Lao Tzu, the old master of Chinese philosophy, who was a figure, or perhaps it was many people, nobody really knows, who lived about 2,500 years ago in China. And so Taoism is all about, wow, what is it even about? It's about a kind of emptiness, the meaning of emptiness, the usefulness of emptiness. Like, for example, if a government interferes with its people and tries to control everything that they do, then everything will probably fail. But if the government or the emperor just sits back and lets people do what they need to do, then things will go a lot better. So this is like the value of non-action.
Does Taoism have a god?
Yes and no, because I'm talking about Lao Tzu, the Tao Te Ching, but that he's not a god, and he's not even considered a prophet, really. He was just a guy. in a sense. But then there are also different parts of the religion where they have eight gods, and sometimes figures get deified. It's kind of like becoming a saint. So I guess the answer is the whole heap.
You mean like many?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I asked that because I've always thought there wasn't a god in Taoism.
No, there isn't really. I mean, not in the same way there's a god in Christianity or Judaism. No.
But most of these gods individually would appreciate there being a higher power again.
Yeah. And so the main concept is the Tao, but that's a very hard concept to describe. I mean, the beginning of the Tao Te Ching actually says the Tao which can be spoken or written is not the true Tao, but it's...
That's really cool.
Yeah. So it is kind of like, in my view, it ties into this idea in yoga of samadhi, which is like the purest form of meditation, when you can meditate so well that there's absolutely nothing in your mind, perfect clarity, perfect nothingness, perfect potential.
Potential for everything.
Exactly, yeah. And that's one another thing I think it's in the Tao Te Ching. He says there are 5 notes in the Chinese musical scale, but the perfect note is silence, because that allows the potential for everything.
Yeah, I think my knowledge in Taoism is very limited, but I think it's one of the religions is very common. It's just not very. It's not very well known for its core.
Because it's very subtle. It's not something you can easily stick on a bumper sticker. Like, you can put Jesus saves on a bumper sticker. You can't put the Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao on the bumper sticker. It just doesn't work.
Well, I don't think people would get their head around what that means between the time of the red to the green.
Yeah.
But in the yin and the yang, like the symbol, is derived from Taoism.
Yep.
I think that most people know what that is.
Yeah.
Like I think that's like an international symbol of balance.
Yeah. Balance, and some people interpret it as good versus evil, but I don't think that's really the original intent. It's more about say masculine and feminine, or different factors at play in the universe.
I think when you're talking about factors being so pure to open up unlimited potential, they can't be in words. They can only be in these images of like mirrored, but not. I mean, it's like. I mean, I'm thinking. I mean, the Mayas, the Mayan civilization have like a similar yin yang.
Really?
You haven't seen it?
No, I don't think so.
I can never remember what it's called.
Oh, was it? That was just that black and white thing you were looking at there.
Yeah, it was. The Hunab Ku?
Who now? What?
Yeah, no, it's. I'm not doing this thing justice.
Okay,
but I mean,
we're putting a picture on the screen right now.
There it is.
Yeah.
And for Kurt, here it is.
Yeah, I see.
But it's. I mean, this opens up. I like to. I went through a little phase of looking into Kabbalah.
Yeah, cool.
And it was mainly for like the symbols, like they use like for the Kabbalah is like is a school of mysticism on the side of Jewish philosophy and religion.
Yep.
This, I mean, that it's not. I don't think it's predominant in Jewish religion or now.
No, I don't think so.
But it's become its own entity, and it's pretty more known for like celebrities following Kabbalah traditions. Yeah. But concepts like the tree of life and the flower of life, fruit of life, all these geometry is that's what I was thinking about when you're saying you shouldn't draw pictures, because pictures, if I draw a picture and show it to you, you're going to interpret that and perceive that picture totally different. But a geometric structure is what it is, and I can draw that to specification, and give that to you, and you're like, we're seeing the exact same picture.
Okay,
so
yeah, that's very interesting, because that's true, because even if I take that commandment to its strictest limitation, it still wouldn't limit drawing a geometric figure, because a geometric figure isn't a representation of something on Earth or below the Earth. Or
Exactly.
Yeah.
This for me was interesting, because now I can transfer an idea pure that has unlimited potentiality in something that's got so much more information, and I can share that to you. I can pass that to other people. So Kabbalah is based on a lot of these sacred geometry. There's a good documentary, and I'm sure you've seen it, Inner and Outer Worlds.
No, I haven't seen it.
It's got 4 parts. You got to check it out.
Okay.
It is no doubt the best documentary that I've come across that links. It starts very basic on like nature and geometry, but then it takes you all the way through to it makes you feel pretty little, which is good, because that needs to happen to a lot of people. You need the power ripped out of you so you can take it back when you're ready, if you're worthy. That's up to you to decide.
Burn. Okay. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I don't want to talk too much more about Kabbalah, but the geometry is cool.
Yeah.
Because that idea of what they were able to do was to transfer ideas amongst themselves in code, and you could draw. They believe Leonardo da Vinci's work had hidden geometry inside his pictures.
Yeah, well, we were mentioning that picture of the guy spread out on his back inside the circle. Actually, it came up in something I was watching the other day, and it's kind of an essay about the golden ratio. Yes. Like the ratio from a man's head to his belly button compared to his head to his feet is about 1 to 1.6. Yeah. The golden ratio. So that's an interesting thing. So he was dissecting the human figure according to the golden ratio,
which also happens to be quite a predominant ratio in the construction of pyramids, and more so in modern pyramids that are supposed to unlock secrets to hidden energies. Yeah. I mean that's Tesla did a lot of work with that. I think there's a lot of he was. Well, I mean, it was all burnt, those books, right?
Well, some people say the CIA keeps them locked up under lock and key. Another interesting religion is Discordianism, which it's kind of a joke religion, but not really. Like this was written by Robert Anton Wilson. And of course, Robert Anton Wilson and Robert O'Shea wrote the Illuminatus trilogy, which is a fun book. But Wilson describes it as a mirror, and he says this book is a mirror. So if a monkey looks in, no philosopher looks out. And the Principia Discordia is kind of the same way. It's this book which is like a parody of Zen Buddhism. So it has all these koan-style stories where people answer in the most absurd ways.
You've been asking me to read the book.
Yeah.
And I feel like more now I am more inclined to read it, knowing the way you described what it is, like as being a mirror. Whatever you pull out of it, whatever you want to pull out of it based on where you're at.
Well, and at the end of the Principia Discordia, Wilson and O'Shea wrote, if you think this book is just a ha-ha, then perhaps you should go back and read it again. So there are all these subtle philosophical questions in there, The idea is that the supreme god of the universe is actually the Roman and Greek goddess known as Eris or Discordia, who is the goddess of chaos, like a trickster god. So he asks questions like, well, if Eris isn't the supreme goddess of the universe, why do men have nipples? Obvious. So the idea is that there's so much chaos in the universe, and it's our kind of responsibility to make order out of it sometimes, but also play with it, enjoy the chaos, enjoy the mystery.
You just made me think of something online with nipples.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't grow up with a dog, so it wasn't my job to give a dog a bath. But now that I've got a dog, I have to give Wally a bath occasionally. And I thought he had like a rash or like a few warts on his stomach. It didn't occur to me that male dogs have nipples too.
And they have about 8 of them.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's up with Wally? He's got warts all on his stomach. It's the universe playing jokes with us.
Eris got you on that one. Yeah.
But I'm definitely more inclined to want to read this book with the idea of the mirror. Because, I mean, if we can jump to, the mirror is like an analog alternate reality. Because what you see in the mirror is not what I see in the mirror. It can't be.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
So therefore, mirrors are like unlimited alternate realities. I'm wondering whether God controls everything inside there as well.
Well, have you ever seen something happen in the mirror that wasn't happening on your side?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
I have.
That's pretty freaky.
Yeah, but it is scary. But you accept it, knowing that it's part of you.
Yeah. Are you talking about like? Because I had this experience once where I was really high and I talked to a mirror for about an hour and had this conversation, and it was like I was talking to some sort of otherworldly spirit.
Yes, that has happened occasionally. But in my case, I realized that my left and I mean, you know, I'm trying to synchronize my brain hemispheres. Like that's like an active practice that I do. And I realized that my face, left and right, is an exact image of the 2 characters of each individual hemisphere of my brain.
Oh, right.
And these are not the same people. So when you're in a mirror talking to what you think is yourself, but you're talking to a group of 2 guys talking back. I was there for a little longer than an hour.
Okay, that's a spin out.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one thing I find interesting, you know, like in Hebrew there are a lot of names of God. So in English we say the word God, or we say the Lord, but we don't actually use the names of God, only titles. God isn't a name; it's a title. The Lord is just a title. So the names of God in Hebrew, there are quite a few of them. Like El was one of them that we looked up then, or Yahweh is a common one, which is also Jehovah. Jehovah is apparently a poor way of pronouncing Yahweh. It's actually the same word. But that word in Hebrew, it actually means He is. But before that, before people called God Yahweh, they actually called the idea I am. They called it Elohim. And
that's confident.
Yeah. You would see why this is an interesting concept, because it's like saying consciousness or self-awareness is God
Itself.
Yeah.
But the acknowledgement of itself that's kind of a big joke, isn't it? Like to think that maybe the awareness of oneself is the presence of God himself.
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I know there are people that believe that, and many.
Yeah, like pure consciousness is God stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which is why, you know, many Eastern religions work on trying to lift that level of consciousness, which today has got many different names, like, you know, just being mindful and awareness, you know, in modern, you know, like modern, like we can say pseudo religions where people are, I don't know, there's religions on top of religions, or just belief systems. But I don't know. Is that gaining traction? Do you think?
What, as in terms of mindfulness meditation, or in terms of the linking of the concepts of consciousness and God?
Linking of the concepts with consciousness and God. I think people that study consciousness realize that it's so much bigger than what they thought. I mean, when someone understands what consciousness is, and the fact that it's not on or off, and that you're not conscious or not conscious, there's an infinite level of consciousness. When you're absorbing more of infinity, well, then you're going to end up getting somewhere pretty high, and that highness gives you power, and almost a God mode, which I don't think is a coincidence. We call it that. I don't know.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts?
Commander Keen's discourse on theology. Well, I think we were talking the other week about the double slit experiment. And so if your consciousness can actually affect how things change in the real world, which indicated by the double slit experiment, they can change how light particles behave, then consciousness does have some kind of godlike quality, at least in that limited sphere.
Well, you're the creator of your perceptive environment. Therefore, you are the environment. You and you get to decide how much interaction you are willing to exert on the environment based on your beliefs. So when you want to give your beliefs away to a religion, then you're giving your power away. Yeah,
I think that's true. And I think that plays into the idea of morphic resonance as well. Because if only one person believes something, well, that idea might not be very powerful. But and maybe he even draws something on the wall, or he creates an idol and says, you know, this idol is powerful. If it's only him who believes it, it's not so powerful. But if 100 people, 1,000 people, 100,000 people believe in these same beliefs, suddenly, well, that guy probably has quite a lot of power. Whether or not you believe there's some spiritual element there, that guy has become a cult leader. And that means he claims to have this contact with God, which other people supposedly don't. And that leads to a lot of problems.
Well, I'm thinking of like you mentioned like morphic resonance being the product of a collective consciousness or unconscious, which therefore can be manipulated by the people that have consciousness. I guess, does that make religion unconscious? If you're going to, language is unconscious. We speak without focusing on the frequency and rhythm or of the words.
You don't have to think about where you're going to place your tongue in your mouth to make that sound R.
Exactly. You're making sound just by trying to exert expression. Or trying to transfer ideas. But when all of a sudden you realize that you're speaking a language that you're saying words that have deeper meaning that have been for thousands of years just used, and all of a sudden you start thinking, well, what do these words actually mean? And
Yeah.
you're asking God for help every 5 minutes, or you're saying, you know, if God will let this happen, it will happen.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, if I'm going to go out and I'm going to shoot 10 people, and they will live if God decides they'll live.
Yeah, well, that's something I heard in Colombia. I don't know if this is true, but it probably is. So what would happen with hitmen, they would go to a church and they'd pray to the Virgin Mary, and they'd say, Virgin Mary, I'm about to shoot this man, so if you think he should live, then I think you should intervene, stop the bullet hitting him. And they would use that to ease their conscience, which is a terrible way to use religion.
I don't like the odds.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not putting my life on the line of divine intervention. Would you?
Well, in a sense, I do it every day, but...
I hear what you're saying, but...
Yeah, you never know when you're going to go. Yeah, so what you were saying about the power of words...
Yes.
Yeah. Like,
I'm just thinking of stupid scenarios now.
Okay.
I got to pull my mind back to the topic.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so you were saying about the power of words, like just like we said with ojalá, you know, according to God's will, God willing. People don't say that so much in English unless they actually have some religious belief. But also, you can say adios. People say that quite a lot, and they don't necessarily think about the religious significance that it actually means adios te comiendo. I commend you to God, or I tell God that you're a good guy, something like that.
I'm just saying bye. But
but bye, again, it's the same thing. It's actually goodbye, which is actually a distortion of God be with ye. God be with you. That's what goodbye actually means. So does that actually have the same kind of unconscious force over your mind? I don't know.
I don't know either. But I think that, yes, there has to be a reason why language is the way it is. I think there was a cool example of the flower of life, and they extract the symbols of the Hebrew language, or it could have been Arabic, but one of the ancient languages, out of all the combinations of connections of the flower of life, and that represents like the basic alphabet of frequency of sounds. So yeah, when I'm talking, I'm saying sounds, I'm using the tool that I've been given, language, but there's more to that. When you think that we're not supposed to create images, but we can transfer geometric, algorithm, mathematics to say exactly what it is, then I'm transferring information of the constructs of the material without materializing them. Language. That's pretty cool. You can play with that.
Yeah. Well,
I lost my train of thought where I was going with that. But be careful what you say. It's powerful.
Yeah, it can be powerful. I like, of course, in the beginning of Genesis, it's God says, "Let there be light." So he's making this declaration. He's creating this world with his words, and maybe we can do the same.
Well, light's like an energy spectrum. I've heard mathematics being called the language of God.
Yeah, that's kind of a Platonic idea. The idea that there are these abstract forms that come into play in the universe, perfect ideas, these perfect representations of abstractions of things, that when they enter the universe, they're not as perfect.
The topics that we've brought up and we're talking about, we're not the average person that's like, do you believe in God? Maybe. Like there's been some thought, some process behind this.
Yeah.
Just to give our podcast a little history of our own background. I would say I grew up with fairly strong religious upbringing.
Right.
In that there was never a question of whether there was a God. There was never a question of whether religion was right or wrong. It was just the religion was always there. God was always there, keeping an eye on us. But it probably wasn't until maybe 5 years ago, maybe my mid-20s, that I came across some material that really started to break some of that programming. Well, what about yourself?
Well, it's a long, windy path. Well, as a kid, I used to go to, I think it was an Anglican church, and I don't know if it was for social pressure or what, because my dad doesn't really believe in God. He doesn't really care for religion. My mother does to some extent, but I don't really know, because sometimes she describes her church as a social club, and like you were saying, and sometimes she says, I think there's something else to the universe. So I don't really know where she stands, but I was I was always interested to some extent. Like, I would look at religious pictures and say, this is interesting. Like, I wonder what the meaning is, and what people believe. And yeah, I would read religious texts like the Dhammapada, the Tao Te Ching, the Chuang Tzu, and other things, to try to explore these ideas, and the New Testament as well, the Old Testament.
How old were you when you had this interest to explore?
I don't know. I guess around 15, 16, 17. Yeah. So long after we stopped going to church. I mean, we probably stopped going to church as a family when I was about 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Around, it was pretty bit later, maybe 10. But I was still quite young.
Right.
I just think my dad was probably the biggest influence, I think, religious-wise. And he would always, he never said it quite directly, but it was always like an understanding. You're spending a lot of time reading and studying textbooks, but you don't spend any time reading the Bible. And although I thought, but I got to get the essay done. I got to get this work done, and it always seemed more important to get the work done. I didn't really I didn't start reading the Bible myself until I was early 20s. But not that I regret reading it so late. But I think it's important to read the Bible. Like, it does start opening doors in your mind of, like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
And it's when you start asking questions, you can start seeing the world in a different way, and you start evaluating what's important in my life and what isn't important. And maybe I would have noticed that reading those textbooks wasn't that important then, and getting that essay done wasn't that important, and I could have been doing something a little more value added to my life.
Yeah.
And that was like, it's a slow, windy path. I mean, but then I think if I started reading the Bible when I was 15, maybe I would have had different influences, and I wouldn't be where I am now. There's a reason why I started reading it so late. I'm not sure.
It's just God's will, man.
But what have you read any recent material or anything that's kind of just spiked you? Like, I got to work this out. I got to work out what's really happening here.
Well, not especially recently, but I tell you, one book which had a big impact on my ideas on theology was Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch. And this is a book, and I recommend that you read this book. So what happens is the supposed story, or the actual story, or whatever, depending how you look at it, it's up to interpretation. This guy is Walsch is very angry. He's angry at his boss. He's angry at his life, and he's angry at God. And he sits down and he starts writing a letter. And he says, God, what are you doing, man? Like, why do you put me through this shit? This isn't right. It's not just. It's not fair. What are you doing? And then, to his surprise, when he finishes the letter, he turns over the page, and his hand keeps moving. So by automatic writing, he's actually dictating the words of God, or the words of deep wisdom from his subconscious.
He was channeling.
Yeah, some kind of channeling, whether that source was within him or without him or both. That's another question. But the book is very interesting, and it has ideas like, for example, different people have different ideas of God. All of them are valid. All of them are real in a way.
Yep.
And yeah, I like that idea.
Well, it's a good place to start with respect, because we're all at different levels of journeys or consciousness. I've definitely got that sounds like an interesting read. I haven't read that one.
Yeah, I think I better reread it actually.
I'm just thinking, if we're going to recommend stuff, I saw a documentary on the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which I haven't got a copy of it. But I think I got the gist, which is why I never really went ahead to get a copy to read it. But I think I might as well, because the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it explains the Passover, the crossover between what happens when you die and the process of where you go to next, depending on how you go in this in-between phase, which is interesting because it maps. Anyone that believes in going to heaven, well, maybe you should have a look at the map between this life and heaven, and what heaven actually is. Well, you can start asking a few questions.
Yeah.
But what it did for me was remove the fear of death itself, which once you remove the fear of death, you can start to think about death in a different way. So talking about upgrading consciousness and changing mind, that to me was like a good... there's a lot of movies about it. It's a cool book.
Enter the Void.
Yes, that's a good movie.
Yeah, that's a pretty trippy movie.
If you're ready for it. You've seen it, obviously?
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. All right, we're about out of time there.
That was a good wrap.
Cool.
Into the Void.
Yeah,
I wanted to finish on that. That was cool, but it's better off watching it. I'm not telling you nothing.
Cool. All right, so my name's Kurt Robinson.
My name's Aaron Bathel.
This is the Paradise Paradox. Press like, press subscribe, press comment, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on iTunes, and add me on Twitter at, at Trouble Bubble.
At Battle AZ, you don't want to miss it.
And peace be with you.
Subscribe on iTunes, subscribe on YouTube, send us a tweet at BattleAZ.